Welcome on in here to First Pitch, August 2nd, the post-trade deadline edition. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and we're getting to you early because of these day games, baby, but we're still bringing you great info, covering 5 different games today. We're going to be talking Baltimore at Toronto Game 3, the Brewers at the Nationals. We got a prop for you in the Phillies and Marlins game. We're going to talk Red Sox visiting on the road, and then we're talking the D-backs at San Francisco. So let's get into it, gentlemen. We got Tokyo Brandon, we got Bryan Leonard, and Adam Trigger rounding out the dais for us today. And Tokyo Brandon, the theme of the day for you is props, as you got 2 props for us. So let's start off with the Brewers and the Nats, as Milwaukee is minus 135 on the road in Washington. But who cares about that? Because you're talking props. What are we eyeing here, Brandon?
Yeah, the outs recorded for pitchers props from DraftKings have been really successful for me lately, so I'm going to ride with that. I'm on a 20-6 run on these props right now, and they're working quite nicely. I have a system where I take, the pitcher's average innings per outing, and I just compare that to the other team that they're facing, and whether they extend that pitcher or whether they generally keep him below his average, and I just kind of do a formula for that, and it's been working quite well. And the first one is in the Brewers Nats game today. Wade Miley hasn't pitched for about a month now, but he's coming back. And looking at DraftKings, they had his recorded outs at 14.5. That's 4.2 innings. That's really, really low. And if you look at Wade Miley this season, he reaches 5 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 5 innings. He's reached 5 innings or more in 4 of his last 5 starts. And not only that, but he's doing it really efficiently. In one of those games, he actually pitched 6 innings on 67 pitches. In another game, he pitched 5 innings in 77 pitches. That's not quite as efficient, but 6 innings in 67 pitches. He's generally very efficient with his pitches. The Brewers leave him in for upper 80s, lower 90s pitches. So I think the over 14.5 outs recorded for Wade Miley is pretty easy money here. I think it's this low because he's been off for a month or so, but he's pretty much a stamina dude. And earlier in the season, there wasn't a game you could find that he wasn't going 5 innings. So I think Wade Miley will go 5 innings here, the over 14.5. It's a little juicy, but money's money. So I like the Wade Miley over in outs recorded.
Yeah, and the Nats and outs are like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together so beautifully there, my man. So we're looking towards Wade Miley over the 14.5 outs recorded. Bryan Leonard also with us, and he's going to be talking about that game a little bit later. So stay tuned here for best bets. But first, let's take a look at the Orioles and Toronto, because, Bryan, there's domination, and then there's what the Orioles have been doing to Toronto this season. Haven't lost yet on the road here, taking on Toronto. Does that finally happen tonight, or do we just keep riding this gravy train until it stops at the station?
Yeah, I'm a believer that there's dominance there, and I had Baltimore yesterday. Worked out really well for me, and you've got to take a look at some of the moves that were made yesterday, and I think that gives us, it may not give us advantage in this game, but it'll give us advantage for the next week or so, because there's a lot of teams that you thought were in playoff contention really didn't make any moves. And I think that's a tell to the rest of the players on the team that the team doesn't believe in them. So I think we could take advantage of some of those teams the next couple of weeks here. But that's not the case between these two with Baltimore and Toronto. We've been riding Grayson Rodriguez since his big league return with great success. No reason to stop now as the Orioles continue to be a moneymaker. You could throw out his stats earlier this season when he came up for the first time. Completely different pitcher now. He comes in with a 6.21 ERA, 1.57 WHIP, and I'm standing in line to try to bet on him. And that's because his advanced stats show a 3.83 xFIP, 4.18 Sierra. In fact, his last 2 outings, he's combined for 2 earned runs in 12 innings of work. This is the Grayson Rodriguez we've heard about for the last 3 or 4 years. He's starting to get to be well known, and I think this is the last time we may be able to catch him in this price range. You say Kikuchi's going for Toronto, and he's having a really good season. His advanced stance support the numbers that he has. But if you take a look, and we were just talking about how long a pitcher goes in the game, that is a concern right now for Toronto because their closer's out. He's been hurt. They had to bring the guy in from St. Louis. I don't think that's going to be much of an answer there. But Kikuchi, you take a look at his last starts. His last 7 starts at home, 6 of those, he didn't go past 5 innings. So he doesn't pitch as well at home. And this is a team right now in Toronto, which gave up a lot of runs yesterday to Baltimore. They've been giving up a lot of runs lately. And I think this Baltimore team has an advantage here. You got key Blue Jays offensive starters who are out because of injury or currently in a hitting slump. That's a major concern here for Toronto. I don't think they can match this Baltimore offense. So give me Baltimore once again here in this big game breakdown. We're going to take the Orioles to continue their dominance over the Blue Jays.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, says Bryan. Leonard. Orioles over Toronto, making it 3 straight in the series and about 5 straight in Toronto. So looking towards the Orioles there. Trig, what are you thinking, man? We got to talk a little totals here on the show. You got a bet for us in the Red Sox and Mariners game, and this total sitting around 7.5 here early Wednesday morning. How are you going to be betting?
Yeah, so it's probably 7.5 right now. When I was kind of getting ready for this show, I saw 8s out there, and there probably still is. You might have to play like under 8 minus 120, but 7.5 is probably the key number. So that's fine. I always think like 7.5 is, as opposed to 7, right? Because you want to make sure a 3-3 game you have the opportunity to land 4-3 and still cash. So I think 7.5 is fine. I think either of those show some value to the under here. I'll just work backwards. 2 of the top 5 if you're talking about top 5 bullpens in all of baseball, I think the Red Sox and the Mariners are both in that discussion. They both have a top 5 bullpen WAR, and they're really like right around, that top 5 in most of the key bullpen metrics. So even with Sewald going to Arizona, I still think the Mariners bullpen is a top 5 unit in the league. I think they just had, the luxury of moving one of their relievers and not really compromising their bullpen because their bullpen's been that good this year. And it's also been that deep. You got to remember the Mariners bullpen numbers still have baked in April when they had like cluster injuries in the bullpen and they had guys out of, in certain roles that weren't supposed to be in certain roles and injuries. And they've still worked around that to be like number 2 in bullpen ERA. Like all the metrics sort of check out for the Mariners bullpen wise. And I think that's why they were able to get rid of Sewald and not really totally compromise their bullpen. And the Red Sox have been right up there in that, top 10 range as well. You got a 4 p.m. a 1 o'clock local start in a pitcher's park like T-Mobile, which should, help the under in my opinion. And you've got 2 starters that haven't given up much of late. And this has the feel, Dan, this feels like a big game in terms of like both teams really kind of need this one. I know there's some potential tiebreakers in play. You've probably got Mariners, Red Sox are going to be 2 of those teams that could very well be, get to the final week of the season. And it's like, they're going to be scoreboard watching. They're going to need a game to potentially get into the playoffs. So, this is one where if you have the tiebreaker, it could be a pretty big deal. For these teams. And the point there is, I just think this is going to have a big, sort of like a big game type feel, which this whole series has to this point. These 2 games have gone over so far Monday and Tuesday night went over. Monday night, man, if you had the under in Red Sox Mariners on Monday night, just a horrific beat, just total nonsense going on in the bottom of the 9th inning. Thankfully, I did not have a bet in that game, but man, like it was just bad. Like that would be a really bad loss if you had under 7.5 on Monday night with like drop third strikes not being called. And then for that one to go over was kind of crazy. And it's probably the reason there's some line value here. You don't really need to, Logan Gilbert, Cutter Crawford, really just take a quick look at the numbers and they are sort of what they are on paper, in my opinion. Both have whips in like the 1 range. Crawford 1.09, Gilbert 1.06. Both have ERAs under 4. And both have been good of late. Logan Gilbert 2.78 ERA over his last 5 starts. The Mariners have won every single one of those games. And Cutter Crawford, he beat me on Friday. I had the Giants on Friday night, and I thought Crawford was exceptional. And you look at his numbers over the last, sort of month and a half, and they've been great. So I don't know that I would think that I can't see any reason to think that either of these guys goes the other way here today. So, decent starts from Crawford and Gilbert. You're handing the ball over to 2 elite bullpens, in my opinion, in a game where both these teams really kind of need it. It's got like a 3-2 feel here, Dan. I'd be surprised if either team sort of like blows this one open. Feel like we're going to get a close game, and that's probably something in the 4-3, 3-2 type range where it stays under the total.
Looking towards the under in a tight game there in game 3. Speaking of under, let's swing it back up to our man Tokyo Brandon, and it's prop till you drop time, brother. You already gave us one pitcher prop, and you got another one for us. This time in my Phillies, taking on the Marlins. Phil's looking to go up 3-0 in the series, but like I set you up last time, who cares about that? We're looking at a pitcher prop here. What are you eyeing, brother?
Yeah, these outs recorded for pitchers has been winning a lot. By the way, was that Jose Bautista in the Toronto graphic that you showed? That was pretty cool. He got whacked in the face by
the best graphics team in the world. Best graphics team
yeah, I
in
think
the world.
I might be mistaken, but it looked like Jose Bautista. But anyways, yeah, we're gonna go to the Phillies and the Marlins, and you put it back up. Thanks, appreciate that. So yeah, Braxton Garrett. We're gonna go on his prop for his outs. So Braxton Garrett is a guy who's averaging 15 outs per outing. And the Phillies are actually extending starting pitchers' outings by about 0.6 outs. So I project Braxton Garrett to go 15.6 outs in this game. The book has him at 17.5. Now, to get 17.5 out, to get the over on 17.5 outs, it means you have to complete 6 innings of the game. And Braxton Garrett has not done that. He's done it one time in his last 6 starts. Not only that, but against the Phillies, he has a terrible history. He actually has an OPS 1160 against OPS, which is really bad. So when you have a bad OPS against a team, generally means they're going to stretch you out because you're going to have to throw a lot of pitches because you're going to be putting a lot of guys on base and giving up a lot of hits. So I like the Braxton Garrett under 17.5 outs recorded. This is actually a client play, a 4% client play. The last one I gave for Wade Miley, that was a free play that's up on WagerTalk.com, but this one's not on WagerTalk.com. This is just a client play that I'm going to give out here because I love you guys.
Wow. Showing some love here this morning. Tokyo Brandon
right.
declaring his love.
The love tonight.
For each and every person that is viewing here. WT.buzz/TB. And you can also get some Asian baseball info from Tokyo Brandon right here on this channel. Alongside Adam Trigger, we got Wager Talk Extra dropping today as well. Bryan, Leonard, we heard about the pitcher prop that our man Tokyo Brandon likes in the Brewers and Nationals game. But in this lefty versus lefty matchup, he talked about Wade Miley. It's Mackenzie Gore likely for Washington. How are you looking to bet this one in a more traditional sense?
I've talked in the past about Wade Miley. He's a guy I like to bet on. When he pitches, when he's healthy, he's a good pitcher. But as Tokyo Brandon talked about, he's just coming back from the IL once again. So we'll have to see how that goes. But in the battle of lefties here, I prefer the host in this one. You take a look on the season, the Brewers ranked 26th in WRC plus versus Southpaws at 88. The Nationals rank 11th at 108. So you've got a nice 20% advantage for offense here with the Nationals. And like a lot of teams that have been out of the playoffs for a long time, I think this is the time to make some money on them. Kansas City's a team playing better ball. Washington's a team that I think we can make some money on. Going against, as I mentioned earlier, teams that thought they were going to go to the playoffs, and now the management didn't bring anybody in. These are the kind of teams that we can back the rest of the year. These are plus teams that we could do nice plus underdogs with, and we're going to do that again today with the Nationals. Wade Miley enters play with an excellent traditional numbers of 3.06 ERA, 1.15 WHIP. but his advanced numbers show a 4.78 xFIP, 4.92 Sierra. He's also due for some BABIP regression. Right now, he comes in with a 255 BABIP. Mackenzie Gore, his opposing starter, 335. So we've got some BABIP going in opposite directions here, which points us more towards Mackenzie Gore. Anytime you want to put money on Mackenzie Gore, you got to realize he does walk a lot of batters. He's got a 10.3 walk percentage. But if you compare his strikeout to walk percentage in this matchup, he's at 16.8%. Well, it's only 9.8% for Miley, because Miley just doesn't have that ability to strike people out. I like this Washington team. They're a confident young group. And Milwaukee right now as the road favorite here. I don't think there's any value there. I mentioned the offensive advantage for Washington, about 20%. And Mackenzie Gore is a guy I like to back. So I'll take Washington as a nice underdog at home today on Wednesday.
You know, Brian Leonard loves those underdog prices, and it's a great one on a good spot here for the Washington Nationals as they're taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Trig, you get the last word, man. Diamondbacks at San Francisco. How are you going to be betting this one?
So I'm looking at the Diamondbacks here. This really stems more of my willingness to sort of jump back in with them. So if you go back to the beginning of the season, Dan, the one thing, and this has not been my best MLB season to date, but the one thing I've really kind of gotten right is how good this Arizona Diamondbacks team was going to be. My biggest season win total play prior to the season was Diamondbacks win total over. That should hit easily. And listen, they had some regression of late. I thought that was probably going to be the case after they got such a hot first half. They're 3-9 in their last 12 games. But one of the things I thought they really needed was pitching help. And I think they're kind of getting it here. Of course, the big, headline for them was getting Paul Sewald from the Mariners. Really will help at the back, in the front end of their bullpen, which has been the issue for them. Their bullpen's been thin, and they haven't really had a guy that could come in and lock games down. That's going to be Sewald. He should be available here. He didn't pitch last night in a game Arizona sort of threw away. I thought they should have. They were in position to win that game last night. They choked it away. So I just, in general, they win on Monday. I think that they're going to start playing better ball, and I like them to bounce back here. It's Slade Ciccone is going to be the starter. I just know he's from the U. Shout out to Joe Ranieri right there. He went to Miami. First round pick in the 2020 draft. He'll make his major league debut tonight. All we really know about this guy is what he's done at AAA so far this year. But I think the numbers are a little bit deceiving. So got to remember, when you're playing in the PCL, Brian Leonard can attest to this. I know he keeps an eye on the PCL out there in Vegas. All of these ballparks are like Coors Field, basically, or at least half of them, right? Like Albuquerque, Salt Lake City, there's Tacoma. Like there's a bunch of altitude in this league. It's a 10-team league, and he's been there since the beginning of the season. So he's been at Reno since the beginning of the season. The overall numbers, you look at a quick glance, the ERA is a little bit higher, but he's improved his numbers each month in AAA this year, which is impressive, because you got to remember, these are high. A lot of these parks are at high altitude, and now you're talking about a 10-team league. They're starting to see him over and over, and his numbers are getting better and better. It just tells me that he's continued to improve, and that's probably why he's getting the call for a team in Arizona that's right in the middle of the hunt for a playoff spot. So obviously the Giants have never seen him. That will help his cause here, I think. And again, I have no issues with Logan Webb. I backed him last week. He pitched into the 8th inning, really sort of gave it his all in that start against the Red Sox. A tough luck loser there. He loses a game 3-2, where he just kind of battled with Cutter Crawford the whole time, and it was an unfortunate sort of loss for the Giants there. But like I said, it was a max effort start for him, and Arizona has seen Webb. That's sort of their advantage here. Last month, these two teams I think Webb faced him a month ago. Arizona scored 4 runs. So they've had a little bit of exposure to him, and it really just comes down to the +1.5 here. Getting that advantage on the road is always sort of key. So I just think there's some value there in getting the 1.5 with the road team in this spot in a matchup that I don't think is as big of a sort of quote unquote mismatch that the books are leading you to believe with the price they're throwing out here. So I will roll with the kid making his major league debut. And then, of course, I think we're going to get Arizona's better bullpen arms. Chafin didn't pitch yesterday. So this sets up, if they can get to the later innings of this game, Arizona at minimum is going to have all their bullpen guys stacked and ready to go here. And I think it at least keeps it within a run in a game that I actually think Arizona probably wins, but I'll take the run head start on what should be another competitive game.
Taking the 1.5. That's Adam Trigger. No gold sheet play for you since we got the early edition coming your way here. We will remind you what the guys are on. Tokyo Brandon taking Wade Miley over the 14.5 outs recorded. Also likes Braxton Garrett under 17.5 outs recorded in the Phillies and Marlins game. Bryan Leonard saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Orioles over Toronto. And a little barking dog action. Washington Nationals hosting the Brewers. He's going with the Nats. And Triggs, our lone total, looking towards the under in the Red Sox and Mariners. And also our lone run line bet, taking the D-backs plus the 1.5. That's going to do it for us. Big thanks to those three gentlemen. Check them out at WagerTalk.com. And if you need some more info, hey, maybe a little Asian baseball action. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. Check out Wager Talk Extra only on Wager Talk TV.